Yep,
Do you able to hear the screen audio also?
I can hear you. I'm not sure if there's any other audio.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Uh, Welcome to the talk and uh, thanks for joining the evening for the PHP meetup for everyone. And hi, hello. My name is Raj. I'm living in London. I love to design and develop modern software. Yeah, about me, I'm Raj. I'm working as a senior software engineer in Tesco in UK, and I have a limited company. I'm the founder and developer in Tesla IT UK. You can follow me in Twitter, Rajkumar Sakti. The next thing is building things yourself. You discover superpower by Caleb. Is a you know super artisan in Laravel field. So, for a modern software engineer best practices 2020, I would like to suggest keep learning and love to learn. That is the main thing for a modern development trend. And I hope next 30 to 45 minutes should be definitely useful for your modern development best practices and your career growth. Next thing is, I would like to suggest always uh, s- sort out these, social media or other distraction. That is the main good practice nowadays. Because in my current project and previous projects, I'm using iPhone and I will keep, I'm getting messages, disturbance, anything from others. So normally now I'm using uninstalling unwanted disturbance apps, and even I turn off all the notification in office hours. Yeah, if you are in Android user already, Google providing these kind of apps are available, so you can use it. So in office time, you can set the apps like majorly maybe office email or office Teams. Uh, so basically, if anything important, uh, compulsory, somebody will call you. If it is one or two times, then it is important. So based on that, you can respond quickly, or otherwise keep concentrate at your work. That is very important for your career. So please disable the notification. That is my first tips. Next thing is, you know, even like uh, modern practice is kind of this thing. If you know the basics, you can make good food, because the basic ingredients are very important to make a good food. So I would like to suggest to learn the basics things is very very important in IT world. Not only in the IT world, in the real time scenario, any field, these things are very very important. So the basics always very very important. And next couple of sites are very useful. Who is willing to join this four group? I hope the four book, many IT people inspired this book. So that's why I added here. So if you're willing to join these four, the next couple of slides are very very useful and important. You need to follow that one. Then definitely you will be in the four team in your future. Because nowadays the big companies are looking, Google search also very very important. That's why I added here. Because if you have a good researching skills, it is very useful in the development field. Because you need to know how to googling properly to get the results. For an example, if you are working 8 hours, definitely um, you will use at least 1 hour or 2 hours for your reference or anything. You will use Google. So you need to learn how to use the Google, because if you know the keywords, you can get the results in page results one or two. uh, from my understanding, and my guru mentor is also in this call. Actually, he suggested me, if you are doing good proper Google search, you need to get your expected results in page one. That is proper keyword. So nowadays all the developer we are doing proper keyword, but for our good reference, Google already implemented different kind of keyword techniques. So you can use Google search help. It definitely helps to getting expected results, combine searches, specific site, related site. Suppose you want to download PDF, so you can add file type PDF, so you will get only PDF based results. If you want to add if you want to docs, you need to add file type docs, so you will get only file types, docs files only, even PPT. So everything you will get relevant results. So you need to know googling properly, because nowadays the big companies are expecting these also one of the skills. So I would like to suggest to learn how to do Google properly, because that is useful one. And next thing is, so same thing, it will be helpful for to implement your projects also. In our current Tesco projects, we are using combined searches. For an example, you want to um, uh, buy a milk, so I'm going to add in my search milk 100 ml, then I will get only 100 ml based results. We are using combine or searches, or splitting space between keyword. So that kind of thing I learned from the Google, and I work very well, and it's very useful. Next thing is data structure and algorithm basics. If you want to get a job in Amazon, Facebook, or Google, they don't ask about what framework you are using, what language you are using, and what are the modern things you are using. They don't bother anything, because they are concentrating only in basics. So you need to know about these data structure and algorithm basics, because then only you can solve the interview questions. So that is very very important. Even the all the data structure and algorithm basics, the algorithm is um, developed and implemented based on our real life incident and scenarios only. We are using queues, selection loops. What do you mean queues? If you want to go and buy something in this pandemic period, what we are doing, we are going and staying in the queue in the supermarket. So same thing, first come first. So kind of all the concept we implemented through our real-time scenarios, but it's a structural way. That's it. Selections, loop, everything our real-time scenario only. So keep think about how it works our real-time scenario. Then you never forget anything about these basics. So keep learning these things also. And next thing is, we know very well these solid principles. um, uh, in nowadays modern PHP frameworks, they implemented all their core libraries. Even if you know or not, like currently we are using many you know uh, ways, without knowing these solid principles we are implementing our daily databases all our codes like a reusability based this kind of thing. So but if you learn these thing, what do you mean by solid and these principles, it will be helpful to implement our projects properly. And next thing is design patterns. It is also very important in software world, because nowadays all again same thing like a modern framework, everything we are using dependency injection, proxy, refactoring, strategy, like a repository pattern, singleton, all these things we are using our projects, but we need to know what do you mean by that. So if you know like that, and these things also, they are it's not rocket science. These all design patterns, all real time scenarios only. So think about adapter, for our charger adapter, what it is doing, it adapting based on our requirements. So same thing. So understand these things with the real time scenario, you never forget these concepts, and you can use your application with proper reasons. And next thing is we are going to discussing about advanced coding skills, productivity, and techniques and ideas. So the main thing is, in Laracast, like they are giving clean code concepts like code reflections or design patterns in PHP, simple rules for simpler code, clean code. All these videos are available. So uh, join and get these facilities and understanding all these stuff, like even object oriented programming of PHP. And next thing. Follow these PHP right way concepts also. It is very useful, because nowadays even the junior developer or a mid level or a senior, every time, now PHP 8 coming now and release. So we need to know about what happened. Even that's why Joe's going to present all these features after this talk. So we need to know what's going in the current trend and the development. Like from the coding style guide, highlights, dependency injection, or database extensions, templating. Nowadays, uh, initial stage is just we are using general the raw HTML, then template system. 10 years before we used for Smarty, then Symfony framework they implemented week, and now we are using modern you know front end framework, bootstrap, tailwind CSS kind of thing, and even latest Laravel implemented uh, blade kit concepts. So we need to know what going in the current world, so we need to understand that stuff also. And now the trend is changed. Initially, people looking front end developer, back end developer, and system admin kind of thing. Nowadays, trend change. Companies are expecting as a full stack, so you need to know all the basics. So understanding the server deployment, and nowadays we are not using like a 10 years old XAMPP or MAMP kind of thing. People are moved to Vagrant, Docker kind of virtualization based application development in local also, and the catchings and documenting your code also very important. And check with the resources. So we are talking about all these tips, so we need to know where it is available. So resources also available, so go and check this all this stuff and use it from now or from tomorrow onwards for all your projects. Definitely it will be helpful and increase your productivity. And next thing, in PHP thing, nowadays a lot of new frameworks are available. How to choose framework for your projects? uh, don't use this framework is famous now, and this is okay or not, like that. Think about your project requirement, then use the framework. You no need to as a modern developer means like a don't it's not meaning like a using modern tools or modern framework. As a developer point of view, like you need to think about your requirement. Based on the requirement, choose the framework. For an example, if you are developing like API based thing, is the Laravel providing Lumin kind of micro frameworks are available. Symfony providing the Silex Python kind of these frameworks, you can use it. But if your project is heavy, you can go with Symfony or a Laravel, because Symfony, they have a long release, and they have a proper plan for next 5 years. So if it is big project and long thing, you can use like that way. Even you can use raw PHP also, but you can create your own concepts. But I would like to suggest to use composer based application development. So next thing is how to choose the framework. So in nowadays, like Symfony and Laravel frameworks are famous in PHP world. How to choose the framework? The following things you need to think, because what happened, sometime you you are going to use some modern packages for your applications. Even for an example, if you are going to use jQuery or something like that for the front end thing, you have a lot of developer packages are available, libraries, I mean third party libraries. Like for an example, the date picker, or the drop down animation, lot of things are there. What happen is, before using that library to your application, you need to think how many stars for that repository, how many forks, how many releases, how many contributors, how many branch, how many commits, how long these packages are they are keeping for contribution and updates. For an example, some libraries, it's fine, but if you go and see the library, they developed and they updated 3 4 years ago. What happened when you updating your front end libraries or a back end PHP version or anything? Sometime it not suitable for the current your version. jQuery library you are using, some date picker, it is suitable for a jQuery version 2 or something, but you are using different version, so it won't work, you will get conflict. So think all these things before you choosing all these framework or anything. See, for an example, in Laravel, 91.52 million downloads, and they have stable releases, um, and uh, star for 59K, fork for 18.5K, 6,000 commits, 109 releases, 528 contributors. So these all the things useful to choose before selecting the framework. And next thing is compulsory. We need to follow version control based application development. That is also good. And I would like to suggest learn the Git concept, not the commands. For an example, what do you mean by git stash? What do you mean by reset? What do you mean by squash? What do you mean by rebase? So if you know about the concept, it is helpful to maintain your repository properly and for a long run with multiple collaborators. Next thing is notice node here. I think everybody know this guy in the IT world, Uncle Bob. So in PHP, we try to use the DDD concept, like using the PHP unit testing. And nowadays modern um, junior level unit testing is also available. The latest best is next level of PHP unit testing with simple terms, like a lighter version kind of thing. So look on that type thing and try to use it. um, Next thing is use the static analysis tools for your projects. It is very useful if you are a junior or mid-level even, or a senior developer, because nowadays we are not doing single um, developer based application development, mostly collaborating with the team based application development. Using the static analysis tools are very useful when you are doing code review, or doing the commit of based on the ticket based thing. Because for an example, this Grum PHP, we used my previous project. uh, why I am suggesting this is because what happen is, when you getting your ticket and you are doing something, everybody human, so sometimes we make minor mistakes. What happen is, using these analysis tools, before you committing, it won't allow you um, solve these bugs. So it is very useful for you before you do the commit. So before you committing and doing the pull request to code review to your your colleague, you are cleaning yourself for your bugs. So it is very useful and save the time for code reviews, and you will be happy with your code, clean code. And it is very useful for your career growth. And because it save everyone time also. Because my previous project, we have 4 to 5 people, all are different level, and all are newly joined. Then we implemented these things. Before implementing these things, what happened, I will get a code review request from the junior developer. Then I do the code review. Then I found all these some minor bugs. Then I add a comments. Then what happened, for a single pull request, the current the strategy and rules, at least we need to get the review from 2 people, or sometimes 3 people. Then only they will approve for merging. So what happened, for a single these thing, if your code reviewing by 2 people, you will get 4 or 5 commands, and you will do the recommit and solve the issue. What happened is, it makes bad impact. Not only one time, it will happen multiple time. When they do the analyzing your code, what happened, for a single pull request, this guy getting like a 10 to 20 commands, and 2 times recommit in the particular ticket. So it's no good. So these all the things helpful yourself to sort of all these things. So what happen, one hour easily you will get approval. Even using these tools is very useful for senior developers also. So using these tools thing, what happen when you do the review, you no need to do check line by line for the particular ticket code. uh, Using this tool, it automatically give you the result of the code coverage, complexity, all these things. So you can easily give the proper uh, relevant commands for your code review. Next thing, try to utilize the modern front-end frameworks also. So currently we are talking about modern development. So just I would like to cover at least basic things. So that's why I'm adding these things. Yeah, Bootstrap, and now the Laravel they implement a Tal stack, like a Tailwind CSS, Laravel Livewire, and Alpine JS also for the front end things. And next thing, who is your best friend? Every developer, I would like to suggest books are your best friend. This thing I got this reference from my friend, my mentor. So what they are saying is every developer need to know about the computer science history. Then it is very useful when you do with your current your development. You can mapping with why we are doing, how it's happen, how you know uh, step by step how it's changed to modern level. So that thing's very useful. These soul of new machine, the big machine, and the history of computing in the United States. What happened, 20, 30 years ago. If you need the hard disk, they used IBM or the companies in 70s 80s. You need a big room. Then like a the charger kind of level of hard disk. Now we are using you know in like these for like a 5 GB 10 GB, as a chip kind of thing. So we need to know how it's happened. So if we know all these things, it is very useful. And even in a modern development, we are not it's not a modern development means it's not a newly invented thing. Most of the computer science kind of thing already it's invented 30, 40 years ago, but we are using modern way only. Even currently trend we are using CACD pipelines, all these things. It's not new thing. It's old thing, but we are implementing new way. Even the version thing, deployment, all the thing they implemented the same thing in 30, 40 years ago. What happened? Even patching. You know, like in olden days what happened, some development company doing something in their floppy or a hard disk kind of thing, and some about something developing in different side of the world. So what happened, they post it, or they they combine both thing, and without any conflict, they are creating patches, everything they did. But nowadays we are using modern tools to doing same thing. So if you know basic thing how they did in olden days, uh, you can understand, and you can implement, you can do make a modification. Nowadays we are using Jenkins based deployment, GitHub action, GitLab action, all these kind of uh, deployment strategies nowadays we are following. um, if you know how they are doing modern way, they know the basics. That's why they are making simplification based on their requirement. So same thing, if you know these things, you can modify, and you can make it simplify based on your company project based requirement based solution. So even for an example, we are using Kubernetes and some latest tool thing. We even no need to follow um, a raw thing, what it is available in the documentation. If you know the basic, you can modify simplification based on your project. So that's why we are suggesting to um, read these all this stuff. And next thing, the clean code, code simplicity, test driven development, the books, these are all very important. Reusability, beautiful code. So when you have a time, spend time for learning. Even today I read some Facebook post. um, every successful person spending their time for learning, at least even uh, the world busiest person in the world, mostly people say you know UK, like a US president, even US president Barack Obama, even even his busy schedule, daily he spend 1 hour for reading. So reading is very important. So next thing, the same clean code PHP, already some of the good developer, he implemented the concept for PHP. So when you have a time, go and check in the GitHub. So you can learn something about clean code. Next thing, as a ninja, so be a master with your editor, because that is very important, because every day, most of the time, we are using editor. So if you know the shortcuts, it is very useful for your productivity. So already, that's why, all kind of editors, they have already, plugins are available. So think about and check same thing formula here also, how many downloads, how many stars, how long they are maintaining all these stuff, like a, I like this, better PHP unique, the bracket for uh, you know bracket pair colorizer, themes, and git lens, beautify, better commands. So a couple of good plugins are available, so use it and make a more productivity for your development. So use it like that way. And next thing, compulsory use this kind of package managers. Even I'm so happy because PHP team, they are trying to implement all other major language concepts to PHP. So I'm happy for that. So use composer, this bubble, gulp cran page for compressing these techniques for your projects. It is very useful for page loading, maintaining, even before using the composer, 10 years ago, what happened, if I want to use PHP mailer, what I do, I go the PHP mailer website and download the zip file and put into my project and add the require and um, implement in my project. But nowadays, using this composer based package manager, like just one command, composer require PHP mail. That's it. It automatically downloaded in your vendor folder, and you can use the library straight away to your project. So it's so simple, maintainable. Next thing is use the allies. It is also very useful in because you no need to run the commands, big commands, and it is very useful for your productivity. Because in my previous project, we used for the Magento, what happened when you do the pair programming with others or getting help from others, what happened, we use normally for clearing cache and re-indexing in Magento, like you need to do for 5 to 10 re-indexing based on the table stuff. What happened, you can't type everything every time. So using this allies is a short command, it will do whatever you want. So use the allies techniques, it is save your time and productivity, and it is helpful for doing getting help or pair programming with others. Because for an example, doing pair programming with others, every time I'm doing the typing with long commands, even I do, as a human we do the mistake, you know it we can't focus the fixing the bug, it irritate to helping um, other side people and lose the focus. So this is a smart way to getting help from others also, it is useful. And next thing, remove unused code using the purge css. composer self update, composer dependency check, use the code snippet. These all the things are next useful things. And nowadays the modern development, uh, as I told earlier, same thing. You need to understand or know little bit thing about end to end of the development, because the deployment things also very important nowadays. uh, in a small companies, they are not allocating separate person for doing these things. Everything we need to do as a developer only handle all these stuff. So understand this infrastructure as a code, like a Terraform, Packer, and container kind of thing, Docker thing, because nowadays all the projects we are using container all based development. And nowadays trend, even try to use your local development also using this kind of virtualization thing, you know background based thing, or Docker, or a simple thing use latest Laravel wallet kind of concepts. And monitoring side, new relic or data dog thing, the log management about Splunk or something like that. And the deployment thing, Ansible, nowadays many people are using. And learn bit about understanding the agile based development thing. uh, these are all the things I'm saying to understand the concept. If you are using agile based development, so what we are doing, every 15 days, small chunks of release, why we are doing, how it helps for project release. And these all the things you need to know. What happen if you know the agile thing properly, you can take a decision. For an example, you need to release 10 tickets for this scrum. What happen in middle of something, because if you can't release thing, i- it will help you take a decision. What are the essentials? It is compulsory. Some features you can postpone, or you can make it for this release. And suppose when we do the release, pre-release, post-release bugs, why it's happening, how to solve the issues. um it will improve your productivity. And for a next level, like if suppose if you are a senior developer, next level you should be a product owner. So if you know all these concepts, it is helpful to take a decision. Even somebody is saying we are going to use, for an example, for a project, if you go with this kind of container, all these kind of concept, for a single project, what happened initially, we used everything um, a monolithic based application development. Nowadays we are using many application micro services based or API based application development. What happened, we have a front end server, middleware server, back end server, deployment separate servers are there. So now what happened, for a one project, for a simple thing, front end server, back end server, middleware server for app server thing. Because nowadays we are morely focusing mobile based thing. So we need like iOS, Android thing, and web also. So we are using microservices based thing. So what happened, for a single project, you have a development server, staging server, and production server. And you are using container based development. What happened, you need to maintain 9 servers for a small project. Okay, it depends based on the project. I'm say talking about example. So what happened, maintaining the 9 server, in future, like you are going to implement a load balancer concept. What happen, it will increase double. If you know these Terraform based infrastructure code concept, you can create easy to instant easily based on the code. So if you know the basics, it's very useful. And same thing, the help of the Packer, Ansible, Puppet. Puppet, Ansible, all basic core concepts are same, but little bit different between the tool based on the company. So if you know the basic core, that's why I'm keep repeating. Understand the basic concepts are very very important in IT world. If you know about how the importance, then you can easily eat the success. And next thing is awesome means everything awesome. So I will give you next is tip for my friends. Sometime you have no time to getting and spending time for research. You need a quick win for your based on your project development. So awesome is a trend now. Awesome means awesome. That's why I'm saying, using this awesome concept in GitHub, you will get all relevant information, resources easily. Suppose you want to use not only the PHP, anything, uh, for an example, if you go and put awesome Laravel, you will get all Laravel based materials easily. You no need to go and Google and search, because here people are contributing. Suppose for an example, again Laravel or a Symfony. So you need to learn the Laravel based concept. You have no books or videos. Sorry. So how to learn this thing? You need some reference. So go and do awesome Laravel. Already all the packages are available. All the links are available, so you can start straight away, and within a week you can start the project. And next thing, you need to follow the trends also. So you need to follow the repositories, developers. It is very helpful. For an example, for a date based thing, previously what we do, for an example, like the date thing, like some pages we are using, um, like a date, see, for this thing, awesome PHP updated yesterday, updated 11 days ago. Sometime we used particular date, like a uh, 03 9 2020. Some page we use today, yesterday, couple of hours ago. All these date time concept previously. If you want, you need to create a helper class and you implemented small function, then you can utilize your projects. uh, but nowadays, that's why I'm told following the trending. In PHP we are using Carbon is a package for a daytime thing, so you can do a human friendly different way easily. So how do you know Carbon is available? So using this, following this trending thing, it will helpful for you. And even you can do date range today, this month, this year, whatever you can do is. And see the photo, see the happiness between the two kids. So next thing is, happiness never decreases from being shared, Buddha. So always share your what you are using productively or whatever may be with your team. Share your things, then it will give a positive wave about you. And same, not only you, the whole team will get advantage and productivity. It will increase revenue for your company also, and your salary. Next thing, I would like to suggest to do the pair programming. In my current project, what happened, 2 days work, in a 4 hour pair programming, we solve the issues. It is very very useful. Even many modern tools are available. The Visual Studio Code, they are using LifeServe plugin, so you can use it and you can utilize it. Next thing is, where we get all these materials and uh, um, more details. Sometime you you have a good mentor, so you will get something. But or otherwise, YouTube is a good mentor. If you are using YouTube for a good thing, it's a god. Same thing. If you are using for a bad thing, it's a devil. So it's up to you. So use YouTube is a good resource. Next thing is you can follow the third party thing also. Like I would like to suggest a free code camp. The free code camp website also available, and same thing they have a YouTube channels also available, and many uh, third party developers paid courses are available free, particularly only in the free code camp YouTube channel and without any advertisement. For an example, as a developer, you want to do like a AWS certification. Go and check the YouTube free code camp channel. You will get end to end certification course. If you go and check the same course in the developer website, it should be 40-50 pound, or 40-50 dollar, whatever maybe. But same thing, some good courses people are contributing open source. So same course, if you go and check in the free code camp YouTube channel, it should be free. And same, the current pandemic, many online resources are they announced free for developers contributing for society. So use all these things and follow the apps like a Medium or a Dev2, because Medium you need to pay as a subscription based thing. Free also available, but you have a limit. But Dev2 is an alternative. So use that one, it's free. And next thing is I would like to suggest using the stack share also. Why I'm talking about these thing is, what happen, suppose for an example, your company developing an educational online portal like a plural site. um, yeah, definitely you will get idea from a senior developer, or higher authority like architect or somebody. But as a developer point of view, you can give some inputs also. So it is very useful. Nowadays the structure website it is easy to helpful. For an example, for these online education portal for a plural site is famous one. So same concept you are going to develop for one of your client. So what happened, you need to know about what are the technologies they are using and how they are maintaining. So these thing it is very helpful. What are the tools they are using, what are the language they are using, and like a front end back end deployment, utilities, office support, all the tools, basic things they are giving the information to sharing their stacks. So it is useful for you for your current project or a future projects also. Even current project you have some issue and you are planning to use catch. So which catch you need to use, like redis or third party thing. So all these thing you can get like a same, you can compare with your current project and the competitor market leader projects. So it is very useful. And next thing, for a front end developers, uh, you know as a famous thing, all phone companies they are inspiring from Apple website. If you go and check OnePlus and some OnePlus, Realme, all Chinese, Mi, many phone companies, they are inspired from Apple. So same thing, you will get some the front end developers, UI developers. You can get inspiration concept from this website. It's award, so they are giving based on different collection category. So you will get a reference about modern trending front end thing. And next thing is I would like to suggest. Get good mentor from your field. It is very useful for your modern development and your career growth. Luckily I got good mentors, one of my friend, because if you know understanding the mentors, uh, because it will be useful for your career growth. I feel that that's why, I'm enjoying the IT thing. Basically I'm not a um, computer science student. I'm an electronics student. I don't know about anything about computer science, but my guru, he teach me everything and guided me. The first thing he guided me how to do Google search. Still now it helping me for my career growth, to understand everything and learning new things. And same thing for reading and allow to learn all this stuff. you know 10 years ago I don't like command line tools, but he always suggesting to learn the command line tools. But nowadays I can't live with command line. So if you understand, get a good mentor, it is very very useful. And yeah, discipline also very important. Next thing, where we get this kind of mentors, luckily sometime you will get good mentor from your school level or college level, and sometime in your ex colleague or current company. Even if you not go and attend the conferences, you will get good mentors, because you can meet same kind of you know career based people, field based people, thinking people. Suppose you are a backend developer, you can see same level backend developer. You can share with your knowledge with him, and you will get knowledge um, fr- uh, from him also. So it is very useful. So, and if you are a permanent or a freelancer, whatever, maybe spend money for go on to attend these kind of conferences. It is very useful. And if you can't, at least attend these kind of local meetups. See, the current meetup also helpful. And even if you have a no times like this, what happens? See, pandemic, we can't do anything. Try to do this kind of virtual thing. Already nowadays all conferences published in different streaming platforms like a YouTube, Vimeo, or Daily Motion, or even private streaming hostings are available freely. So try to watch these videos. I learned many things from these kind of conferences, improving my productivity and career growth. And even all these conferences, they are not talking about um, uh, they do properly, like all these things, like um, all our daily basic things, essential and future. So it is very very useful. And next thing, in the current pandemic period, everybody working from home, so I would like to suggest set up the home office. It is improve your productivity, drink more water, and do exercise. It is very helpful. Stay home, stay safe. And next thing, this is the right time to do certification. And I already mentioned previously, many online sources, the companies are giving freely resources for developers. So utilize that. Go and check this Class Central website. They already listing what are the free recommended courses available for developers, so you can utilize it. And I told you this is the right time for doing the certification. um, so like if whatever you want, you can do it now. Even nowadays, I think Microsoft Azure certification, it's they are giving free training with £100 of like a voucher also, so utilize it. And next thing, good company, how to ch- choose or identify you are in good company in current pandemic situation. From I think March to till now, if you get full salary, that company is the number one company in the world. They are take caring the employees. They are the family. That's even they have a lot of issues, pressure, money wise, everything. Still, they are paying full money to the employee. So that is the good company. So for the good company, we need to contribute ourselves also. So do productive, good, spend time properly for the company growth. It will be good for us and good for you also. And next thing, the roadmap. I would like to cover all these stuff. Like go to roadmap. These thing, it giving already suggestion like as a backend developer or a front end developer or a tester, whatever maybe. You can understand all the modern trends. All these things. It is helpful to understanding the basics things. And next thing is again same thing. If you know the basics, you can make a proper good output. So then you will be a success. Every field you can see the leaders. So same thing. If you're good at with the basics, then automatically you will be a chef. And next thing, uh, these all, it won't come in a single day. Success is ton of discipline. So what all successful people and psychologically they are saying, if you want to follow something, you need to continue the process at least 22 days. So continuously, regularly, if you do these things, you will get success definitely. And next thing, think, idea, try, do again, keep doing, you will get success compulsory. Happy coding. Thank you.
Thank you, Raj. That was an
Yeah.
amazing talk. That was like a ton of information. I wrote a few things down here.
Mhm.
Does anybody have questions for Raj?
Um,
Sorry, I thought I heard something.
Yeah.
Any questions for Raj?
to us or will be available somewhere for future reference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you
I,
hear me? Okay. Yep. That's nice.
Yeah.
Thank you,
You
Kishan.
said will the slides be posted somewhere? Is that what you asked?
yeah, definitely. I will put all the slides in speaker desk.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Either post it here in the chat or on the meetup page because that was definitely a ton of information, and I think is great for any developer looking to kind of navigate things. And I totally agree with you that understanding what's happening versus just running commands or copy and pasting stuff, opens up so much more ability to be confident and not wasting your time with routes that may take you longer and stuff like that because you run into issues because you don't know 100% exactly what it's doing. So I ran into that myself when I first started developing. So that I totally agree with that.
Yep. Yeah.
Cool. Any more questions for Raj?
Um, we will post it if in case. Raj shared his mail in case. Yeah, that's really useful.
Let's check the chat. Okay. Yeah, just I guess kind of a question myself. Have you seen any certifications on Code Central that look appetizing right now? Are there any, like, I guess, discounts or anything like that going on with all what's going on? Or is everything pretty much still the same cost? I know some of these certifications you have to actually go into some places too. So I'm just not sure if the cost for some of these certifications have gone down or if they're still the same.
Yeah, because now the Symphony, I think they are giving some discount, Symphony developer thing, and and yeah, some like Azure they are giving discount, and the Google Cloud also they are giving some discounts. Um, you know, yeah, many companies they are offering nowadays due to the pandemic thing, so you can go and check and you can use it.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. So definitely something I'll check out. And that roadmap SH thing, I think I've seen that once before, but I totally forgot about that. So
Okay.
I want to go through that again myself just to see if I can spot anything new I want to re-review.
Yeah, but it's just a recommendation only, so we no need to follow same thing really. Like you can go and check like something like Zero to Mastery is a good resource. Like the guy actually he have a couple of courses like same like a junior to senior developer course are available, and same thing like a mind map thing, how to improve learning, or how to learn properly. They're giving some research based techniques. Many free resources are available. I suggest to use free code camp YouTube channel is very good, and without any advertisement it is very very useful. And follow I think transversy media kind of some channels are available. And even due to this pandemic many people they started YouTube channels, so you will get some good information. So I would like to say use YouTube properly.
Yeah, there was so much information out there. It's definitely something to make sure you're getting it from a good source.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, Raj. I really appreciate you staying up late for us to present that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Awesome. All right, if anybody does want to review, he did post a speaker deck there. I will now share my screen, and let's talk about PHP 8. Okay, let me get my headset on here real quick. Okay, cool. Can you guys hear me good?
Yeah, better.
Okay, great. Alrighty. So, everybody see the screen? Or let me get up my notes here.
Yes.
Perfect. Just bear with me. Let me move this over here. All right. Perfect. All right. So yeah, just I kind of skipped a few. So this talk is about upcoming changes in PHP 8. Spent a bunch of hours digging through a lot of different articles and videos and RFCs to compile this list for you here. So hopefully it's useful, and I'll be sure to post the link as well in the meetup.com as well as the chat here when I'm done. So the talk outline for tonight for this talk is just one, going over the release schedule for PHP 8. Coincidentally, today they are cutting the beta 3 tag. I believe 15 days from now, they'll be cutting the very first release candidate 1, and that's exciting. So we'll talk more about when PHP 8 is due. Then we'll be going on to the features of PHP 8, which will be a majority of this talk's time will be spent in. We'll talk about all of the tons of updates, added features. Some of the stuff may kind of touch 7.4 or was up for vote for 7.4, but didn't quite make it for 7.4 and was pushed to 8. So some of this stuff may look familiar, but was scheduled for 8. Then we'll talk about breaking changes. It is a major version upgrade. Stuff's gonna break. So just it's not too bad, honestly, though. It's should be pretty straightforward for a lot of the code out there that you might have. Then we'll go into the deprecations listed for 8.1. That is still an ongoing discussion. It hasn't been finalized, but most of everything there does not look very, I would say, used in the wild, at least from what I use from day to day. Then we'll just go over some of the resources that I use to compile this list. And at the very end, some shout outs for people who are awesome because they are living the open source life. It's not easy to not get paid and contribute your time into something like this, but somebody's got to do it. So we'll talk about a couple of people who really need some free beer sent to them. So a little bit about me. My name's Joshua Copeland, Joshua Ray Copeland. I've been programming for over 12 years. I have over 10 years of PHP experience. Very beginning, I was dealing with PHP 4, and that was no fun. Then 5.3 came around, and that changed my life. But it took me a while before I actually got into frameworks, and then that was another life changer. Then Composer came, and that changed our lives, and so on and so forth. PHP's come a long way. But I come originally from like a C#, Java, C++ background. I'm the CTO of Remote Dev Force, a little bit more about that in a minute. I'm the user group leader here for PHP Vegas. Been for, I think, like 5 years. So keeping it going. I want to share my knowledge and everybody else who's kind enough to share their time to, talk about what they're passionate about as well. I'm a husband and father of 2 kids. Love them to death. Give me a reason to show off my kids right now to you. And I love skateboarding and collecting these Yeezy shoes. I don't go crazy with it. My wife won't let me, but I get a pair here and there. And then vintage stuff, anything old. I love it. And that's my beautiful wife. Just got back from Bryce Canyon out in Utah. It was fantastic out there. A little hot, but it is what it is. So Remote Dev Force, shameless plug. It's my company. We do mainly PHP development. I have a bunch of programmers who are awesome programmers that are mainly Laravel and Symfony based developers. We do, freelance projects for various clients. You can check out our website for more details on that. But if you're looking for either freelance or full-time development, definitely hit me up. I have my contact information here at the end. I either know someone or maybe I can hook you up with some side work. So, release schedule. So basically, with PHP 8, we'll be due for a release here at the end of the year. So November 26th is what it's scheduled for right now. And pretty much since the PHP 5.4, 5.3 era, the releases have been on time and have been fairly, tested and solid. So I don't think that there'll be any delays here. But right now, as it stands, with the way that PHP does their life cycles on versions, there'll be 2 years of maintenance, and then there'll be another additional year of security patches. So that's typically how they do all of their versions and this maintenance on those. So this is from PHP.NET supported versions right now. As you can see, if you're on 7.2 right now, you better be scrambling to get off, because at the end of the year, they are going to end of life that. Right now, it is under only security issues will they go patch something, but after January, forget it. They're not going to patch it unless you're probably paying for some third party to do it or something. But you need to be thinking about getting on the 7.3 or 7.4 here pretty quickly, which I actually am moving a client right now from 7.2. So that's fun. But the moral of the story here is upgrade often. I've heard a ton of horror stories. I have some myself, but one of the main ones being, one of the worst ones I've heard is where someone went and updated, I believe this might have been a Windows environment, but updated the server, the workstation, all the workstations got updated in the process of the server getting updated. They didn't check if the requirements were met for the hardware for these things, and basically the new software update completely bombed out on not only the server but all the workstations. So the entire company was down all day. And the reason it was all day and they couldn't revert this very quickly was because a file had changed during this update that was a library file. So they went and they needed to go restore their backups, but they've never actually tested their backups. So when they went to do that, it took almost 3 hours or whatever it was to export the backup, because it had to export the entire directory. They couldn't just pull down one file. So make sure your team, your company, you have some sort of normal schedule and procedure to go update, PHP or any language you're using. So that way you don't have this nightmare every 5 or 10 years making a whole bunch of changes to try to scramble to upgrade your stuff, because 10 to 1, that's definitely going to cause some issues. So just the way with semantic versioning working, this is kind of like a neat little emoji I found from one of Sebastian's talks on PHP 8. But I think it actually comes from someone's Twitter post, but I like it. The way that you can think of major, minor, and patch versions, and Laravel doesn't work this way. I think it uses romantic versioning or something. Maybe they're changing that, I'm not sure. But with PHP, right now we're on 7.4.9. So that 7 is your major version. Then you've got your minor version and your patch version. So, the major version, oh my God, everything's going to break, scary face. You got your features, which is the dot part in the middle there, 4. Hey, we're getting new stuff, cool. And then the patch, hey, something's broken, security or something like that. So check your logs for deprecations. This can be done pretty easily. Just go in your PHP INI, flip this little bugger over to -1, and you will start to see all kinds of fun stuff, I'm sure. I know I do anyway. So there's a beta downloads page. If you are inclined to want to go check it out, you can either go to the GitHub or the archives on php.net and download that. This is the GitHub. Kind of surprised there's only 750 something odd contributors. So if you do know C, you should go contribute. I'm looking into it myself. So features of PHP 8. There's, I think, quite a bit there's a lot of features with PHP 8, but as far as performance is concerned, you're not going to get the same boost as we did with upgrading from 5 to 7. So 8, there are some cool things that could give you some boosts in speed. There are some pretty neat features that are in there, but it's nothing like the upgrade we have with 7. So just kind of an asterisk on that. So the biggest change, in my opinion anyway, is the JIT compiler. We'll go into each one of these in more detail here in a minute, but I've met Zev and Dimitri myself at a ZenCon, and those guys are really sharp guys. And I'm sure everything they built in this JIT compiler is definitely going to add a lot of performance for PHP, but you'll see here in a second why it's not going to help your average web application. So attributes is also another major upgrade that we've got. Named arguments, match expressions, throw expressions. Someone mute themselves. I'm not sure. Someone just unmuted and it's throwing me off a little bit.
I'm sorry, this is from my
Yeah.
side. I just want to know what is the JIT compiler, and well, can you explain what is meant by JIT?
Yeah, we'll get into that here in a minute. Yep, I've got a couple of slides on that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So there's union types. There's a new static return type. There's union types, which is pretty cool. We'll get into that here in a minute. And then there's mixed types. So these 8 here are your big feature upgrades for PHP. And I think they're all great. We didn't get generics, unfortunately, but getting generics is going to take a heck of a lot of work. So who knows when that's going to come. But as of now, these are really cool updates. And we'll go over each one of those here in a minute in detail. So there's also a whole bunch of other kind of updates that have come along with this. There's constructor property promotion. We'll get into that. Inheritance with private methods, weak map implementation. You can call class now on objects, the null safe operator. You can not actually define a variable when you're catching exceptions now. You can put a comma at the end of parameter lists and closures, which is pretty cool now, just like arrays. Creating datetime objects from an interface. There was some weird oddities between date and mutables before, but now they've cleaned that up. There's a stringable interface now. We'll get into that. There's a stir contains function. Thank you. Finally, I don't have to use stir pause, right? Stir starts with, stir ends with, also great additions. Heck, if we're adding stir contains, might as well add those. fdiv, we'll get into that. Debug type, resource ID, those are maybe not going to be used too much, but are pretty cool. Getting away from some old style kind of stuff. There is an abstract method traits fix that might break your code if you're not doing something right. And there's objects with token get all underneath the hood stuff, probably not going to be too useful unless you're doing like crazy stuff. Variable syntax tweaks, we'll very lightly touch on that. Type annotations for internal functions, we'll touch base on that. And the extension for JSON is now built into PHP. So, as someone just asked, what is the JIT compiler? So the reason I have this little fractal image here is because there is a video there out on YouTube of Zev performing a performance test with the just-in-time compiler. Oops, kind of skipped a few. But basically, the just-in-time compiler stands for, basically taking the PHP and then building that out into machine code, right? So you probably know PHP is an interpreted language. It's not compiled like C, Java, Rust program is. Instead, it's translated to machine code. So the stuff that the CPU understands, right? JIT is a technique that will compile parts of the code at runtime so that the compiled version can be used instead. So there's a so-called thing called the monitor, and what it does is it looks at your code as it's running. The monitor detects parts of your code that is re-executed over and over. It will mark these parts of your code as warm or hot, and depending on the frequency that it gets called. These hot parts of your code will get compiled as optimized machine code, and then it gets used on the fly instead of having to look at the PHP and turning that into machine code every time. So the op cache kind of does something similar to this, but it's not as proficient as a JIT compiler can do this. So this is great for code that's ran over and over again. So think of maybe a worker that pops something off a queue and has a very CPU intensive, hash function or something like that. The JIT compiler is going to add some good speed boost to that. However, with web applications, we don't have that same CPU cycle or same thing that's happening on the code every time. Different requests comes in, different headers, everything's different, with different clients making requests against your API or whatever it may be, your website. So, your web application may not see that much, but if you're building something outside of a web application, PHP now opens up more possibilities to people looking for a fast language to build something like, that could, churn through hashes, math functions, whatever, something that's repetitive, and open up PHP to being much more proficient compared to like Python, Go, Rust, some of these other languages out there. And JIT can become improved over time. If you are interested in JIT compilers, you can check out this free Mozilla course on JIT compilers if you're willing to, kind of go through that. But that's, not just native to PHP, any interpreted language sort of thing can benefit from that. So like I mentioned, some of the downsides, the very first one is the JIT compiler. It's a compiler, right? That's if you ever wrote your own compiler, there's some simple examples out there, but like compiler theory is very complicated. So this whole change has added a lot of code, and people were kind of nervous, honestly, accepting this. So when a bug pops up, updates are going to take some time probably, because right now the bus factor is probably Dmitry, Zev, and maybe a handful of other people who are nice enough to contribute their time to fixing things that pop up. But unfortunately, like I mentioned, the JIT compiler is not really going to help your web applications, but workers, CPU intensive stuff, this will definitely help out. So, sorry. But there are a lot of other cool features like attributes that have come with PHP. So attributes is kind of the other big change that's happened in PHP 8. It's commonly known as annotations in other languages, but essentially it's a way to auto-tie objects to variables, constants, functions, classes, methods, a lot of different places. So instead of having to parse doc blocks, so think of doctrine, for example, or eloquent, whatever, you typically with like a variable like the ID on a entity, you're having to put all of these comments above a variable, and the comments have this annotation in there, and there's this reflection stuff that has to happen, and some people coming from other languages kind of cringe when they see that comments are driving functionality for the code. So this ditches that. This essentially allows us to use attributes as actual objects that are attached in a more language specific way. So won't have to parse comments and doc blocks anymore. And I think probably will be a little bit faster in the long run. So ORMs and a lot of other things are going to benefit from this a lot. But this double at there was a lot of drama about this. If you didn't see, there's pretty much the big talk about PHP 8 right now was that this got accepted as the syntax, but then like somebody noticed like, hey, what about problems with the current at usage for suppressing errors or forwards compatibility? All these different discussions kind of came up and bringing up, okay, what's the actual best case that we can do for this new type of attribute syntax? So there was another RFC that got thrown onto addendum, and this is already after like PHP is already getting developed. So this was all very, very, very recent. So there was another revote. Here are all the different syntaxes that you can see here. So basically, the one that got accepted here is your hashtag bracket. And I actually think that's probably the best because what's kind of neat about it is before PHP 8, it was considered a comment anyway. The hashtag was. So technically you could start putting the syntax for this stuff in place before you upgraded to 8, and then things would start to work. I'm sure there was some other arguments about this. I to be honest, didn't dive too much into it, but just know that now that is the final kind of syntax that was approved. There was a post literally yesterday that Derek Revens did when the vote went through. So I went ahead and I kind of made some examples for you guys and pulled some from the RFC too. So think like I said, here's a doctrine example. Now instead of actually having to throw comments, which unfortunately the syntax thing still thinks they're comments, but imagine that they don't look like they're comments. Now they'll be looking at these objects and calling the constructor on them and passing whatever you have here into the constructor and using the value of whatever's underneath it to basically attach to. So think of event listeners and stuff like that, which we'll kind of get into some examples there. So creating attribute classes, like I mentioned, is something like this. If you want to create a new attribute, you would say, hey, this is an attribute. And then you have to put a target. So essentially you have to say where your attribute can be used. So if it can be used on a method or a function, you can use the bit or operator like I do here with this little pipe. So I can say, hey, it's usable on a method or a function. I've got all these flags. As you can see here, there's class, function, method, property. This little one down here I separated because it's different. It tells whether you can repeat the attribute. So if it's something that like whatever you wanted to have it called twice, you could very well group this twice and have it call the attribute twice with the value. But if you but you have to mark it with is repeatable. Otherwise, there's an error that gets thrown. There are a whole bunch of different variables you can pass into attributes. There you can do bit shifts and all kinds of stuff before the value actually is heading into it, constants, other things like that. But I have a feeling that it's still probably going to be a little rough in the beginning. There may be some problems that come up with maybe converting doctrine to use this or whatever. So we'll see. I'm sure there'll be another RFC to improve attributes as we go along. So again, this opens up the ability to add core attributes. So imagine being able to mark your class as, hey, like use a JIT compiler for this, because I'm pretty sure it's going to run a heck of a lot faster. It's a CPU intensive class. Or, hey, this is deprecated. Do not use this class. You can throw some functionality in there that will spit out logs or whatever Now you just don't need to rely on your comments. So there'll probably be a whole bunch more that eventually come out. So this is going to be big, I think. Well, big in a passive way for PHP anyway. So here's like an event listener example. This is kind of before attributes. So you can see here we have this huge array here at the top of all of our different events. And then, down here we have each event getting passed in, but depending on the type of event that happens. Now, after, you can kind of consolidate this code a bit. Get rid of that array at the top. Quit having to scroll up and down or hop to different files to see which events are listening to what and what's wired to what. It's right there in the code. And it is literally running the event listener code right there. You know it's running because it's a language construct now. So pretty neat. I hit the wrong button there, sorry. Yeah, so anyway, this would be using the subscribes to attribute, and we would be passing in different, essentially, events to listen to. And this would be like our subscriber that would subscribe this function to get called when this event is fired. So here are some named arguments. That is a new update in PHP. I'm not sure how I feel about this, but that's not my place to give my opinion right now. This is a new update that allows you to call functions methods with the name of the variable. So in this example, we have A, B, C, D, where C and D is null. We can now call B, D, A, in whatever order we want. We can skip defaulted values, so we never define C here in this example. So again, I imagine for some more complicated functions, this might be a little dodgy if you don't have good naming conventions. But take this set cookie, for example. I mean, I can even think of an example myself with like caching. But, hey, this has name value expires. We need to set the name and we want to set expires. But let's say we wanted to just dodge setting the value for the cookie for now. Well, now we can. We don't have to pass in empty string for the second value. We can just call set cookie name colon the value expires colon the value, and all is good. But before, the old way, you always had to, in order, define everything. So pretty neat. This is using an example of the construct promoter, but I'll get into that update here in a little bit. But this is also using the named arguments example. So, so in this, you can see we're passing in name, email, age, and that can come from a variable. It can come from doing something more complicated, like we'll get here in a second with erratic functions. But right now, there's even a way, and again, this is why I'm a little indifferent. I'm not sure about this. This could open up problems, but take the bottom left example. We're taking the very first element where we did not have to define an index for it. So Brent, it gets passed in as the very first parameter to customer data. So essentially here, name would get Brent. We didn't have to define name as the key. So that works. But if you do it the other way, where let's say Brent was at the bottom of this array and it didn't have a key for that value in the array, that would break. The only way you can pass in something without a key is if it's one of the first elements in the array. A little weird, but again, you can do that. I wouldn't. If you do have a variable that it's not known, like you pass in the wrong name when you're calling this name argument stuff, it's going to blow up the world. So it's going to throw an error. So again, this triple dot is the variadic function. This takes an array and explodes it out to the elements that get called in the method, or in this case, the constructor. So just another example here. We're creating the customer data and we're passing in these three. And then here we've got a static function with the triple dot, which is the variadic function, to expand the args. So args in this case would be this array. So, we're passing that in, and that kind of gets converted over to that named parameter style of calling the constructor here. So could be kind of a shortcut, and maybe a better way for things that have a ton of options. If there's like 50 different things, maybe now it makes more sense to make your constructor more complicated and having more parameters, because you can just pass an array in now or something like that. But with having out to like skip a bunch of stuff. So we'll see how it gets used, but this is not valid. You can't define a key and then pass that string, that variable, as the key of a named argument. So do not do that. That will error out. The named arguments on this example, we have a parent that is implementing this event listener. You can change the name of the variables. That's fine. But if you call the names from the interface, it's going to blow up. You need to call what the parent's showing. So this match expression thing is another cool thing. It basically allows us to have cleaner switch expressions. So in this example, we have match input. So it's like a number, right? Pass that in. If it's 0, the value that gets returned is hello. That is now a result. Or if the value is 1, 2, or 3, we'll get world. So now instead of having to put case 1, 2, 3 in a switch and then have that return world, you can now use this match expression, and also supports defaults as well if nothing matched. So pretty cool, a lot more cleaner than switches. Perhaps with more complicated switches, you'd still want to use a switch. So switches aren't going away. There's also a static return type now. So instead of the kind of old school, hey, this is returning a static, but you can't really say on here static. Now you can actually type hint that it is going to return an instance of itself. So that's cool. That gets rid of doc blocks if you don't want, like in this case with union type. Before, let's say we want to allow string and int as the input value for this. Well, you couldn't. I'd have to choose string or int. I couldn't have both as the value for input. Now with the recent update, PHP 8, we have union types. So you can use a pipe and you can separate all your different ones that way. Pretty swanky. Mixed types. Oh, my thing uses all the things. So I'm going to put mixed. I'm sure if you've used PHP Storm, you're familiar with mixed, because I think that's what it defaults when like you don't put something in or it detects that. So now we can ditch this doc block if it's something simple like this is valid. Why do we even need this doc block when the code is self-documenting? So now we can add this mixed here into is valid as the type hint. But why do we even need the comments? This thing is super simple. Doesn't need to explain what the function's doing. It's just doing like one line of code. Let's just ditch that altogether, right? So I can imagine future code looking like this, where you just see is valid and the code is self-documenting, right? At least that's like, I think, some people's hope. So here on the right, that's what mixed is. Mixed is an array, bool, all of these different things. So can be useful if you're passing in kind of who knows sort of thing. This I was talking about earlier, constructor property promotion. Pretty cool. This is old. Everybody knows that this was a pain. Having to define all this stuff, putting in all these things into the constructor, having to assign everything in the constructor, accidentally putting A instead of Z. It's a nightmare. We like to be, proficient, aka lazy. So this is what your code is going to start looking like if you wanted to use this feature. This does everything on the left now with PHP 8. So we can define all of our property methods, and it already automatically assigns those property parameters, those property parameters to these parameters being passed into the constructor. You don't have to go and define them anymore. So pretty nifty if you're into writing rapid code. There's now inheritance, a fix, I should say, for inheritance with private methods. Before, there was a fatal error if you tried to do this, but essentially it would say you can't override a final method, but by definition you can't override a private function or method. So this was kind of like wrong to begin with what it was saying. So now there's a warning that gets generated. It just says private methods can't be final as they are never overridden by other classes anyway, right? So little change there. Weak map implementation, pretty cool. I can see this being used in Doctrine and other ORMs. This was kind of introduced, I think, in 7.4, but didn't have an implementation. Now there's an actual built-in implementation in PHP 8. But essentially, if you look at this example, there's this cache object here, and then we have double question mark equals, which is the null coalesce operator equals, which basically does kind of what the null coalesce does, but then assigns the value to itself, sort of thing, if it does have a value. So in this case, if cache obj had a value, we would use that. If it didn't, then compute something expensive would then get assigned to cache. And with this weak map implementation, let's say a whole bunch of stuff, we did like a whole bunch of queries. It was a huge job, 10 gigabytes later, this script is starting to run out of space. The garbage collector starts to kick in. This weak map tells PHP's garbage collector, hey, if you want to ditch stuff in this, go for it. I don't care. So it's a way of kind of like, if you don't need the data 100%, PHP can garbage collect it. You can call class on objects now. This is cool. You don't have to call get class function anymore. There's the null safe operator. I like this one. This above is before. You had all this code like get me the date. Okay, is the date a date? If it is a date, give me the time. Now you can just put this question mark in between a method call. And if get start date is null, it won't call that method and blow up. I'm sure some of you are aware of that, hitting that issue. So pretty neat update. Non-capturing catches. On the left, you always had to define a variable for the exception, but if you don't need the exception, then why even define it? So now PHP allows that. You can have something catch it, but you don't actually have to assign a variable to its value. Trailing commas. So see here, we've got a comma at the end of the function parameter. That's not like a syntax error anymore. And also for the closure, there was an RFC added to fix that as well. So now you can have trailing commas in PHP. At first I was kind of against that. But honestly, it doesn't really change anything. So I don't know why I was against it. It's just more of like, I like to be OCD with my code. So another thing added is this little date time immutable thing. If you wanted to juggle between date time to date time immutable, or the other way around, things were a bit tricky. So now they have these new methods, create from interface. So essentially you can create a datetime object from a datetime immutable, but when you use the create from datetime or create from immutable, and you would do it the other way around, there wasn't really any clear way to do that. So by adding this create from interface on both the datetime and datetime immutable, there's now a generalized way to convert from datetime to datetime immutable objects. There's also a new stringable interface. This can be used to type in anything that implements the __ toString method. So whenever a class implements that toString method, it automatically implements this interface underneath the hood. So there's no need to manually implement this. As long as your class is calling that, it is now considered a stringable, extending that interface. So it can be useful. The stir contains function, like I mentioned in the beginning, I love. No need now to do this crazy stuff where you're having to do stir pause and then checking false, all this. You just do stir contains, you get back a nice clean bool value. There's the start and ends with, pretty straightforward. Haystack, haystack, hey, that would return true for the bottom one too. So can easily check strings with those now. The fdiv function, this allows you to do divide by 0, essentially. Before div would, I think, blow up. So following kind of what they did with fmod and int div functions, this allows you to do that. And if you do divide by 0, you'll get back this inf, negative inf, or not a number, depending on the case. Get debug type function. This allows you to essentially, something like get type would do, but now instead of just returning object, it will return the class name. So can be useful if you are doing that sort of thing on objects for whatever reason. This is the get resource ID function, like with MySQL connections or file handles. You used to have to cast it to an int, which is kind of that old way up there. And then now you can just call this get resource ID and you'll get back an int. So just a little cleaner way of getting an ID for the resource. There's PHP token objects now with this get token all function. I'm not going to dive into this. I think it's just more for if you're messing around with actual, like the PHP code interpreter. There's a bunch of variable syntax tweaks. Honestly, a lot of them are just small cases and like really crazy, I think, complicated things I haven't really seen. But this addresses a lot of small fixes for those. Type annotations for internal functions. Now in all the extensions, there's still a bunch of extensions I think they need help on, but it's kind of long overdue to add a bunch of type hinting or type annotations, I should say. So that way, when you're looking at these functions, like in PHP Storm, and you finally dive into some of these deeper functions actually built into PHP or the extensions, you can get some better documentation. And like I mentioned, the extension for JSON now is always compiled in. So I don't think Composer is going to complain about that anymore with PHP 8. Some breaking changes that are coming through. Again, they're not too bad. I think all in all, you should probably be pretty good, but there are a few to look out for. One, if you have a trait, but when you implemented that trait, a trait with an abstract function, and you implemented that abstract function, but you didn't follow the type hinting exactly, before PHP 8, it did not check the type hinting correctly. Now they've fixed that. So that could potentially break things if you're using a strict mode for PHP. The PHP 4 style constructor is gone. If you're doing this, you should be ashamed of yourself. That has not been the way to do constructors for a long time. use under__ construct. Calling non-static methods with a static call, you could do that. I didn't know that until I saw this, but you can. And they obviously said that's a bad idea, and that's going away. Like, not deprecated, this is going away. This is disappearing. It was already marked deprecated before. So you should have had a long time to stop doing that. Unset casting is gone. Before, again, another one I didn't know you could do. You could actually call unset as a cast type, and that would unset the value. That does not work anymore. You should be calling unset as a function. Error tracking changes coming through. There's a track errors INI config that was removed, meaning that PHP error message as a variable is no longer available. So originally you can flip that on, and then you can use this error message thing, or this variable, which would magically come out of nowhere to track errors. Don't do that. If you need to, use this error get last, but 10-to-1, you should be using exceptions to capture errors. Do not try to be looking at error message strings. Make things throw exceptions. Case insensitive constants, I didn't know this either, but you can declare constants as case insensitive. That third argument here is going bye-bye. So what you pass in is the value for the constant now. Undefined constants, if you did var dump and foo, for example, it would create a string with foo in the name, and that's what basically would happen prior to 7.2. Now after 7.2, deprecation warning, but it still creates that string value, with your unknown constant essentially that wasn't defined. Now it blows up. Hey, fatal error! Like, this is an undefined constant that you're trying to call. So that could break some stuff. That's probably more likely to cause issues. Another thing that probably hasn't been done for a while, but maybe with old libraries, if you are using any, is the autoload magic function here. That would override all of the autoloader classes though. So essentially it would like overwrite everything else that was already autoloaded. You should be using SPL autoload if you do have, like, I guess a library or something you maintain that does have that. So just another thing that's being removed. There was also this create function, and that's going bye-bye. You should be calling, creating anonymous functions essentially like this, closure. There's used to be an each function that's going away. The old school way of doing a for each before each was around might have been using an each, so it could have very well looked like what's on the left here. But now with for each, your life is much easier. So hopefully you won't run into this, but this could be a pain to refactor if you are doing some tricky stuff. Array indexes with negative integers. Take this example, -5 is our key, foo is our value, and we add to this array 2 values, bar and fuzz. Prior to PHP 8, it would just go to 0 and then continue from there. And now going forward from PHP 8, it will start wherever your negative number was. So this could also break some stuff perhaps. But now it goes -5, -4, -3. So however you add it, but if you don't define the key, that may change on you. EAll and display errors have changed a little bit just on their defaults. So the default now is EAll, so everything's going to get included more than before. And then display startup errors is turned on because people used to get white screens of death after installing extensions or whatever, and they'd be like, why is it broken? And now it tells you why it's broken because that's turned on. So it's probably a good thing, especially for new developers who hate on PHP all the time, maybe. So getting towards the end here, deprecations. There's no deprecations that I can necessarily see that they tagged for 8.0. I think that's by design, but they're targeting some for 8.1. So they're still in discussion, like I mentioned. And here are the list of the different things that are getting deprecated. Like I said, this is still an ongoing discussion, but none of these that I can tell I'm using. So probably not a big deal. Maybe some of the file constant stuff, maybe you need to check out. If you are still using the MB check encoding without an argument, that could be an issue. Key, current, next, previous, those sort of things could become a problem. But other than that, I think the deprecations, that are coming down shouldn't be too bad. So I'll be sure to post these slides so you can grab these resources later. But essentially, what I kind of wanted to just throw out there is, since PHP is moving in this more type safe environment, you should check out Psalms, which is basically a type hint or type checking tool. It's one of the best tools out there for that. So just like Raj mentioned, use some webhooks that call that and whatever, check your code, right? Have it automatically check your code and lint your code. And that very well can find issues right out of the box. Grove, you're doing it wrong. If you build a library and you want to be really strict about people not using it correctly due to bad typing, then you can do that. And when somebody uses your library wrong, it will not install the library. It just blows up on Composer install. So that's like really strict, but avoids maybe bad issues being entered into your GitHub. And don't, if you use don't, you can implement that on your objects and essentially tell it, hey, deny things like magic methods or other dodgy code that can't be used on your objects. So a way of kind of protecting your code. There's also some shims out there for some of this stuff that we mentioned, some of these new functions. So if you want to like start prepping, you could very well do that. Sebastian Bergman's talk on how to get ready for PHP 8 is great. I really like his talks. He's fantastic. He built PHP Unit. Shout out to him. Brent's articles on Stitcher talking about all the recent updates to PHP 8 are like golden. That's pretty much where a lot of the resource from this talk has come from. So definitely check out those articles. And php.net and the RFC wiki. If you want to see what's coming down the pipeline, go check that out. And Reddit's PHP subreddit is also awesome. PHP Mentors is a book that I'm mentioned in. I've got like a section there on my different like kind of things I do day to day. So if you are interested, go take a look, download an e-copy of that. And there's a whole bunch of great people in there giving their recommendations on how to write good code. So some shout outs, just wanted to add this last slide. We're kind of over time here a little bit, so I'm going to just rush through. But Sarah Goldman, Gabriel, Dmitry Zev, Nikita, Derek, all awesome people. These are people that are behind PHP 8, PHP. They're amazing. They're awesome. I can't stress enough how cool these people are. So you should thank them. There's a whole bunch of other people I'm sure I forgot to mention, and shout out to them too. So does anybody have questions before we kick into the giveaways?
A lot of interesting things. Yeah. So looks like I'm more interested on the JIT. Things maybe super fast with the command line tools that I already have with the PHP CLI. Yep, we'll see.
Sorry, I'm getting a little bit of feedback. You said something about CLI and PHP. What was that?
Okay. Yeah, appears PHP CLI will be faster with the PHP 8.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
You said that the JIT will not may have big impact on the web app, but with the CLI tools, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's not exactly 100%. It's anything that's CPU intensive and math computational. Because if it can compile it down, it will just make it like as fast. Essentially, it should be technically as fast as C, but they're still gonna have to bake in a lot of PHP's base types in there too. So it could be a bit of a bloated binary. But the JIT compiler, at least from my understanding, is anything that's going to do math should speed up. So if you have like your like a really bad case for PHP is like machine learning. If you were doing like on the fly machine learning, that would get JIT compiled in a heartbeat because it should pick that up, and that part would speed up. But not necessarily like your web forms or displaying a web page or any of that.
Yeah, and I think I was mentioning like like queues, workers, some of that stuff may speed up. But yeah, like if it's definitely tied to like dynamic stuff that changes, yeah, it may not have that good of a speed improvement. But I imagine there will be hot parts of the code for some of that stuff that do get compiled down to JIT. But again, that requires a monitor to kind of notice. So that new attribute function, when you can mark something as JIT, might help also to kind of just say, I know this is going to be a hot part of the code, so let me just mark it. So are there any other questions? Please post your name in the chat if you want to be qualified to win one of two prizes, the PHP Storm license or the Symphony Cast 1 month membership. Just say, yeah, just toss your name in there. And I'm going to copy pasta all this stuff over. Again,